Hey everyone, and welcome back to another viral touchdown video. In today's video, we're going to be talking about the Super Bowl and all the crazy stories that you might not have heard about it. These stories range from hungover players to even missing people, so be sure to watch all the way through this video so that you don't miss any crazy stories. So starting out, we're going to be talking about a Super Bowl hero that led his team to win the first ever Super Bowl in history. This player was Max McGee of the Green Bay Packers. Now the interesting thing about McGee was that during the games before the Super Bowl, he only managed to catch 4 balls thrown to him. Due to this statistic, McGee was very doubtful that he would get to play, so he decided to stay out late and party the night before the Super Bowl. Sadly, he was wrong because after the third snap, the starting receiver, Boyd Dowler, had to leave the game due to a shoulder injury. This meant that McGee would have to play while still hungover. This shocked McGee greatly, and it turns out that he was so confident he wouldn't get into the game that he left his helmet in the locker room. When McGee was called into the game, he had to borrow a teammate's helmet. Now this obviously wasn't a great start to the biggest game of McGee's season, but somehow he was able to change everything around when he caught the first ever touchdown in Super Bowl history accidentally. Yeah, McGee did score a touchdown, but he didn't even mean to. The quarterback for this game was Bart Starr, and for this monumental play, Starr threw a bad ball that was slightly behind McGee. McGee didn't want the ball to get intercepted, so he reached back for it, and this was when the ball just stuck to his hand. Now that's something I'd like to see OBJ try. This play was a crazy way to start the scoring in the first ever Super Bowl, and during the rest of the game, McGee went on to pull in 7 receptions for 138 yards. During these, he scored another touchdown, and although this insane performance didn't lead to the Super Bowl MVP award, McGee's performance is still remembered as the best from Super Bowl I. It's crazy to think that somebody could perform this well while still being hungover, where other people have trouble just getting out of bed. Now you would probably think that all the stories told in this video would be about players, but our next one is all about a lucky fan. This story takes place after the Steelers won Super Bowl 13. So I guess in order for this story to take place, the security guards were partying a bit too hard after the win, but a Steelers fan was actually able to sneak into the locker room with all the other players. Luckily, we wouldn't have had this story if it wasn't for reporter Steve Sabol, who was able to see this man wasn't where he should have been. Sabol was in the locker room to interview the players, and when he was interviewing Mean Joe Green, this mysterious man came out of the showers and started to get dressed. Sabol asked Green if he knew the man, and in fact, Green had no clue who he was. This mysterious man traveled to Larry Brown's locker where he was being interviewed by reporters who thought he was an actual player. Once people started to catch on that he wasn't supposed to be there, the fan left the locker room, and to this day we still don't know who this mysterious man was. The person that managed to get in there must have had one great time because those locker rooms can get pretty crazy after a huge Super Bowl win. Now moving on to our next story, I really hope you Falcons fans don't get mad. Now we all know that the Falcons have never really had great experiences in the Super Bowl. I mean, they did manage to throw a 28-3 lead. Okay, I won't touch on that for the rest of the video, but you have to admit that it is kind of funny. Now, this story doesn't surround that Super Bowl, but it is another one that the Falcons lost. This was Super Bowl 33. So normally, the night before the Super Bowl, the players try to relax and get their minds ready for the biggest game of their lives. But Eugene Robinson took a new approach to getting in the right mindset. Robinson decided that it would be a good idea to go and get arrested. Now, I guess he didn't mean to, but he got arrested for soliciting an undercover police officer. And for those of you that don't know, this means that the officer was pretending to be a prostitute and Robinson didn't say no. This is super ironic because earlier that same day, he received the Bart Starr Award that was given to a player that shows the most outstanding character and leadership everywhere they went. Maybe he wasn't the best candidate after all. So even though Robinson was arrested, he was still able to play in the game. After losing Super Bowls, the Falcons players and fans jumped straight to excuses. I mean, don't even get me started on the deflated balls. Okay, I promise that was the last joke. But after they lost this Super Bowl, players told reporters that the arrests had a huge impact on the game. Instead of getting ready mentally, all the players could talk about was Robinson getting arrested. During the game, Robinson even gave up an 80-yard touchdown pass to Rod Smith, the receiver for the Broncos. And I guess the Broncos should probably be thanking Robinson because the whole arrest situation led to a relatively easy win for them. Okay, so hopefully you enjoyed those 3 crazy stories about the Super Bowl, but we aren't stopping there. For our last story, we're going to be talking about a missing player from Super Bowl 37. It's not every day that a player goes missing for the Super Bowl, but Barrett Robbins, the starting center for the Raiders, made it happen. So just a bit of a backstory, Robbins was diagnosed with depression earlier in his life, and this is what many people blame for what caused him to go missing. So essentially, what happened was every player had to get to the team hotel 2 nights before the Super Bowl by 11 o'clock p.m. Robbins made this time, but the next morning he was missing. He wouldn't be found again until 8 p.m. the night before the Super Bowl. He missed a ton of team meetings, and so Coach Callahan was forced to remove him from the game day roster and ordered Robbins to stay with his wife and kids. So while Robbins was missing, he ended up going to Tijuana, Mexico to party. Robbins later touched on his thought process, and in his mind, he was thinking that the Super Bowl had already been played and they had won, so he was partying because of that. Turns out the very opposite happened in the Super Bowl that he wasn't allowed to play in. The Raiders got destroyed by the Buccaneers 48-21. It might have been cool though if the Raiders did win because Robbins could have been called a psychic. But it turns out that the Raiders needed their starting center to win the game. Robbins was later diagnosed with bipolar disorder, and he has a list of many post-football arrests. Well, those were some of the craziest stories that you probably never heard about the Super Bowl. Normally when people talk about the Super Bowl, they talk about the actual game, but they seem to forget about the crazy events that happen off the field. Hopefully you found this video entertaining, and if you did, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe for more football videos. Everyone over here at Viral Touchdowns, thanks you for watching all the way through this video, and we'll see you in the next one.